The Setewosweji Medical Laboratory, which I've been working in since 2003. The main mandate of this lab is to provide laboratory support for studies that are conducted here in KHRC. We have various units that support the work that we do. We have the clinical chemistry section where we test for liver function, kidney function, and other parameters like lipid functions, glucose, and other biochemical tests. We also have the hematology unit where we test for various components of the blood, including hemoglobin levels, white blood cell levels, red cells, and other components. We also have the parasitology section where we examine blood for parasites, including malaria parasites and intestinal helminths. We also have an entomology unit where we study various vectors of medical importance, and this includes mosquitoes, where we test for mosquitoes that carry the malaria antigens. We also perform other tests in vectors like the ticks, where we look for viruses like the arboviruses. And we have a bacteriology unit also where we culture various specimens from the body and look for the presence of microorganisms and also test the microorganisms against various antibiotics to identify which antibiotic will be suitable for treating the organism that is identified. We also have a molecular biology unit where we perform molecular testing in various infectious diseases. We've done some in malaria, and then we also test for COVID. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, our lab here was one of the testing centers for the Ghana Health Service. The samples are usually collected from the communities or from the hospital, which is not far from here, and these are transported to the clinical lab. At the clinical lab, they are received and documented, and from the reception, the samples are moved to the various units depending on the test that has been requested. Here, the tests will be performed by staff who are well trained and competent to perform the tests. Our equipment are calibrated, and we also run quality control checks on them daily before we analyze samples from study participants. KHRC also hosts a malaria slide bank, which consists of a set of validated slides of various diagnosis, species, and densities of malaria. These slides were prepared with the support of partners like the WHO Ghana Office, National Malaria Elimination Program, the Ghana Health Service, the Malaria Care, Impact Malaria, and other partners. And these slides are used for training microscopists across the country. They are also used for testing the competency of malaria microscopists. We all know diagnosis of malaria needs to be done before patients are treated with antimalarials. And it all depends on the accurate diagnosis of the lab scientists. And to ensure that the lab scientists are accurately diagnosing the malaria, we use these slides to provide training and also assess their competency. So during the RTSS malaria vaccine trial, the lab played key role in the testing for malaria parasites and also the safety tests like the liver and kidney function testing, and also tested for the blood parameters like the hemoglobin, white cell counts. Testing of these is essential so that in monitoring the study participants to identify a child who needs further testing or further clinical care. In doing this, The lab also participated in various external quality assessments to ensure that the results that we were generating were very reliable. Some of the schemes that we participated in were the UK National External Quality Assessment Scheme, which provided us with samples, 2 samples twice every month, and these were analyzed and results submitted and compared with results from other labs across the world. We also received slides from South Africa, which were also examined by our microscopists here, and these were also compared against expected targets. In all, our lab scientists who participated in these external quality assessments performed extremely well, which went on to demonstrate the quality of the results that the lab generated during these studies.
We have the capacity to do clinical hematological analysis, biochemical or clinical chemistry analysis, parasitological analysis. We have the capacity to look into entomological assays and projects. We have micronutrients, bioanalytic unit. We have the microbiology. We have the molecular biology, as well as the immunological setup. With the clinical hematology, we have about 5 automated systems that help us to analyze full blood count samples. We also carry out GSPD testing. We carry out blood grouping, blood film commenting, and in all these capacities, we have external quality assessment programs that are used to evaluate the competency of the staff as well as the equipment and the quality systems of the unit. Likewise, the clinical chemistry unit, where we have a system to look at the cardiac function, some hormonal profiles, the lipid profiles, as well as the electrolytes. So these systems are available, and we also evaluate them using external quality assessment programs. We are having the capacity as a training center, a center of excellence in malaria microscopy, where we train people and we refresh them with malaria microscopy capacity. And that facility, since its inception, has been able to train not less than 1,200 medical laboratory scientists across Ghana, and even on other research institutions across Ghana, Burkina, talking of other countries as well. So when it comes to entomology, this is the capacity that is assessing and evaluating insects and other vectors. Currently, we are on the lookout for Anopheles stevensii, which is a global issue, a global threat that everybody is on the lookout for. Should we identify it in our system? One of the studies that we are doing with the entomology unit is fishing out for other herboviruses that potentially could be the cause of some infectious disease outbreaks in the future, and it's been running in the last 3 years. The microbiology unit, just as all other units, is resourced with the necessary capacities, the biosafety levels to handle cultures and sensitivities for all biological fluids that one can think of, as well as wounds, and the system prepares its own media in-house and have the capacity to evaluate the quality systems with an external quality assessment program from the UK NECAS. The molecular biology unit is having real-time PCR2 systems, is having the Gene Expert system, where we are using it for the TB assays as well as chlamydia, gonorrhea, infection detection, currently in our pregnancy cohort studies. We have been a center with a capacity that during the COVID looked at over 9,000 samples in molecular diagnosis, helping formerly the Bru and Ahafo region in the fight against the COVID pandemic. Currently, one of the things the bacteriology or the microbiology unit is doing to support the surveillance system in the outbreak of meningitis, the outbreak of cholera, is to help in the molecular typing of meningitis. And the system is established with what we call a multiplex system that targets about 3 important pathogens that are implicated in meningitis. We talk of the Neisseria meningitis, Haemophilus influenzae, and strep pneumo. These are being run on the PCR system on CSF, that's the cerebrospinal fluid that is collected from suspected people with meningitis. And the system helps currently within the Bono East and the Bono region to help in the molecular typing of all these organisms that I mentioned. The HPLC helps us to do hemoglobin variance assessment, drug monitoring. In one of the studies that we did previously, we worked in collaboration with the London School and established some efficacy and standards of drugs, anti-malarials that are in the system. And that particular study established that over 35% of malaria drugs that at that time were on the market were substandard. The HPLC does that very well, and this is something that we can partner with the Malaria Elimination Program, the Food and Drugs Authority, and other standards authorities to check and monitor and survey for quality drugs on the market. The Roche system is for hormonal assays. Currently we use it for the thyroid function. Anything hormones, once you call it up, you can assess it on that system, and also use it for vitamin B12 estimation. We have a plate reader, ELISA plate reader, that can be used for all things that are ELISA platform we can think of. So the capacities are vast, and we keep adding on depending on the demands of the research that is coming up. Like right now, we have a satellite lab that is set up in Atebubu that is looking at malaria vaccine and malaria chemoprevention therapy studies in Atebubu. It's been running in the last 1-2 years. And on top of that, we are going to get some equipment which have arrived that we want to look at. If you give malaria vaccine to children, if you give them malaria chemoprevention, how does it affect their immune system? How do they build up the immunity to protect themselves now and the future? And that is what the equipment, the flow cytometer, which is a 37 color flow cytometer from Cytec, is going to be set up. And we will look into all these things, and possibly we'll be able to inform better how the drugs and the vaccines our children are taking is affecting their immune system. I think there are more we can build on as and when the needs arise, and of course the sponsorship is available.
The clinical laboratory will continue to provide high quality laboratory testing, and then we also look forward to the ultimate, which will be to have our lab accredited to ISO 15189-2022 standards, which will be a demonstration of quality and competence.